Are you okay with your name being disclosed within my research project for my linguistics
I'm
class?
okay for my name being disclosed.
Okay, thank you. So I am going to ask you a few questions regarding the relationship between discourse of research teachers to a parent's primary language and the effects it has on providing accommodations for children with disabilities.
Great.
Do on average, how long would you say it takes to get through an IEP, the IEP process for an English family versus the IEP process for a family of Indian Asian descent?
In a meeting, it will take me an hour to an hour and a half for an English family, and it could take up to 2.5 hours for a family whose their primary language is not English.
Do what does that do to?
Well, they don't understand exactly what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And I will have an interpreter come when I come to the meeting and interpretate what I'm saying when I am realizing that they don't understand the IEP process.
Do you feel that kids who speak English at home get better accommodations because you're able to communicate to them in English versus families where like they don't speak English? Do you feel like they just don't get the accommodations needed because you can't communicate with them?
I would say that I feel that kids whose parents aren't well educated and understand the IEP process and don't understand how to get their child help affects the fact if a student is going to get support at school or not get support at school. I think it's more falling through the cracks.
Mhm. Do you do you think there's a disconnect between turn taking and intercultural communication between an Asian Indian versus us, and turn taking meaning mannerisms in the way like we talk versus the way they talk, and what we think is polite versus what they think is polite?
It's very different. The Indian community is very secretive and they don't like outsiders to know their business. A majority of Indian families that I've dealt with, the husband is who you, when it comes to them finding out that their child has learning disabilities, is who you deal with. As to the wife, abides by what her husband says. And I feel, and then in the white families that I deal with, I feel it's very partisan. Half is what the husband believes and the other part is what the wife believes, and they come up to a common understanding of each other. Whereas in the Indian families, it's very much it's male dominant.
Is there any like major differences you see in what a child gets? A, a child who speaks English versus a child that speaks Indian, or do you see a difference there, or do you see a difference between a child who does speak English really well but is Indian and
It's not just that they speak English really well, it's just that it's a whole cultural thing.
Yeah.
The culture of the Indian family does not like anyone to know their business and does not like to get help from anybody. So for example, we tested a kid this year who is an Indian family, and the son needs resource support, and the parents want nothing to do with it. Whereas if I feel like if it was a white family, they accept it.
Mhm.
They'll take the help.
So kind of summarizing, it's partly, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but so cultural background is the major thing that is difference in providing support for a child, and that an American cultural background, not anything having to do with race, is more accepting and willing to provide extra support with a child with learning disabilities than a family who
From
is
India.
from
Yeah.
India
Or Asian. It's actually just Asian, because even the Korean and the Chinese families don't like to accept help either. It's very hard to have Asian or Korean families or Chinese or Japanese families accepting help. Whereas the families who are white like us will accept the help. But then like if you go to the Black families, I mean the African American families, those families are people who came out of inner district communities that are very poor, and they're trying to get help for their kids. So it's just the school that I work at is has a very diverse community. But the Indian families or the Asian families do not like to accept help. They expect their child to go to a UC. They expect their child to go into the medical field, engineering field, or business field. And they expect their child to, if it's a female, to marry who they are told to marry.
When you're in these meetings talking to them, going back to turn taking, do you see a difference in the way they, you mentioned how in Asian meetings with Asian parents, you mentioned how the dad, the father, is the one kind of controlling the whole meeting. Do you see a difference in like turn taking with like the wife kind of waiting for the dad to talk, or like overlapping, like they won't speak until they see you're done speaking, but versus a white family, they would like kind of start to like ramble on? Do you see a difference in like the politeness or
So when you're in a meeting with an Asian family, the women don't speak, it's the male that speaks. When you're in a meeting with a white family,
the women definitely speak, and sometimes they pretty much speak more than the man.
Mhm. Is there, have you noticed any differences in pitch or avoiding pauses or avoiding